Continuing to look at measures of spread in our unit on one variable data, we're going to look at standard deviation. So standard deviation is a calculation that shows how close or not close to each other the numbers in a data set are to the mean. So we're comparing all of our numbers to the mean, which is the average. And if we calculate our standard deviation and it is close to 0, then that means all that the data points are close to the mean. So this is quite a lengthy calculation, and it requires 5 separate steps. And for an example, we're going to be calculating the standard deviation for Bob's quiz marks. So we have Bob's quiz marks right here. We have 45 plus 71 plus 99 plus 32 plus 67 plus 85. Okay, so the mean is going to be equal to all of those numbers added together and then divided by 6. Okay, and we are going to get for our mean 66.5. Okay, so this is step 1 because we're going to be using this calculation to take us to the next step. So for step 2, we are going to be subtracting the mean from each of the numbers in the data set. So I've already copied down all the numbers in the data set, and we're going to subtract 66.5 from each of these and then do that calculation. Okay, so our first one, we are going to get negative 21.5, and then 71 minus 66.5 gives us positive 4.5. 99 minus 66.5 gives us 32.5. 32 minus 66.5 gives us negative 34.5. And 67 minus 66.5 gives us 0.5. And 85 minus 66.5 gives us 18.5. So that is step 2. Now step 3 builds on step 2, where we're going to be squaring the difference. And the word difference means to subtract. So in step 2, we found the difference through subtraction. So we are going to square that difference. So we are going to take negative 21.5 and we are going to square it, and then we are going to get an answer to that. So that is going to give us 462.25. If we square 4.5, we get 20.25. If we square 32.5, we get 1056.25. And if we square negative 34.5, we get 1190.25. And if we square 0.5, we get 0.25. And if we square 18.5, we get 342.25. So now we've completed step 3. We squared the difference. So now we're going to move on to step 4. Step 4 is to divide the sum of all of the squares by 1 less than the number of data items and this is when your data is a sample. So we're going to get into this a little bit more in 1 second, but let's just do the sum. So we need to get the sum, and I'm just going to do it right up here instead of rewriting anything. So the sum means we're adding them all together. This is going to give us 3,071.5. Okay, so we found the sum, and I'm going to write it now down below step 4 also. So 3,071.5. Now we're going to divide the sum by 1 less than the number of data items. And this is for when your data is a sample. And so right now we're going to treat this as a sample. These are not all of Bob's quiz marks that he's ever done. This is just a sample of them. This is only 6. And technically, when you're doing this for a population, so if you were surveying or getting the data on like every single individual or just every piece of data available, not just a sample, then you should do it in a different manner. But just to keep things easy, we're going to always do it where we divide by one less than the number of data items. And what I actually mean by that is that we have 6 data items, right? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So here we are going to divide by 5 to get our answer for step 4. So this is going to give us 614.3, and let's just write down what this 5 is. This is 1 less than the number of data items. Okay, so we are almost finished. There's only one step left, so let's go on to step 5. So with step 5, we are going to determine the square root of our answer to step 4. And then this is finally going to give us our standard deviation. So our answer to step 4 was 614.3, and we are going to take the square root of that. And we are going to get approximately 24.8. So we're going to round to 1 decimal place. Okay, so this right here, this is our final answer. This is our standard deviation for Bob's quiz marks. Now, for an optional practice question, you're going to find the standard deviation for Julie's quiz marks. Okay, so you're going to pause the video. You're going to write down Julie's quiz marks on a piece of paper. Then you're going to rewind the video and go through all of the steps we did for Bob. And when you're done that and you feel like you've done that calculation, then you're going to come back and you're going to go over the answer. So I'm going to skip to the answer right now, but you should really pause first and go and do the calculations on your own. Okay, so the answer to the standard deviation of Julie's quiz marks. Let's go through what we did here. So we did the mean, so that's step 1, got that done. Okay, so we added all our quiz marks together, divided by 6. Step 2, we subtracted the mean. Okay, so we got that the mean was 69.7 approximately. Notice that there's a little approximate sign here, so we rounded to 1 decimal place. And I'm subtracting that mean from each of her quiz marks. And then for step 3, we're squaring the difference. So we're taking all of those answers that we got after subtracting the mean and we are squaring them. Step 4, we need to find the sum. Okay, so here we found the sum of all of our squares. We added all of these together and we got 221.34. And then we divide by 5 because 5 is 1 less than the total number of data points. And we got approximately 44.3. Again, you'll notice that I rounded to 1 decimal place. We have the approximate right here. And step 5, we need to take the square root of 44.3. So the square root of our answer from number 4 to find our standard deviation. So our standard deviation here is 6.7. Okay, so now we have an answer for Bob. We have an answer for Julie. And let's just compare those. Okay, so what is the standard deviation actually telling us here? Like, why are we doing this? So we're going to compare Bob and Julie's quiz marks, and we're going to compare the mean and the standard deviation. So you'll see that the mean numbers for Bob, we have 66.5. For Julie, we have 69.7. And they're fairly close to each other, right? Now, if we take a look at our standard deviations here, though, they are not close to each other at all. So what does this tell us? That they have very close means or averages, but that the standard deviation is not close. So what this tells us is that because Julie has a much lower standard deviation than Bob, this tells us that her quiz marks are much more consistent. So this means that Julie's much more likely on her next quiz, so quiz number 7, to get a mark that is close to the mean, so close to 69.7, than Bob is. Bob is not as likely to get a mark close to his mean, which is 66.5.